welcome to Culture Alchemy, where we do a deep dive into film, TV, music, and the stories and trends lighting up the group chat. We'll discuss what it means, why it matters, and how it shapes us. I'm Antoinette.
And I'm Drew. Each week we've got pop culture's hottest takes served fresh. We are turning pop culture into pure gold. This is Culture Alchemy.
Hey everyone, hey Andrew. Here we are, the day after the Oscars, and we're here to break down all of the hits and misses, the best moments, and talk about our thoughts on everything that went down. And I'm just going to admit that I took notes last night as I was watching it, but I was all over the place. So, full disclosure to our listeners, we are going to break it down left, right, and center, but strap in because we are going to definitely take some tangents here. So, I don't even know. Where do you want to start?
I mean, let's start off with Conan O'Brien as the host of the Oscars. Like, I'm still recovering from the Oscars, and I'm still deceased, and I'm excited to give our hot takes on the Oscars. I was, I thought Conan O'Brien did a great job. I mean, some of his jokes were like, yeah, they definitely hit. They definitely hit with me. Yeah.
Mm, I agree. I agree. I'm a big fan. It was his first time hosting, but I'm hoping not his last. I really, really respect that he went in right away on the elephant in the room with Carla Sofia Gascon. That was a great joke that he told about the whole controversy around that whole movie and took a knock right at the publicist right away. So that was good. I liked that very much, and I loved the Lithgow bit as well too. I kind of liked that, and I
Yeah, I thought that was great too. That was funny. Yeah.
it was, and I think there were a couple moments in the show where I would have not been mad to see them pull that out, where people were running a little bit long, but it was yeah, it was a good bit for sure, for sure. Now I mean, I guess we can just kind of go from there because obviously, the minute that your girl Cynthia came on stage and started singing her opening with Ariana Grande, I have to know what your thoughts are. I know you are a Wicked stan, and at that point, that must have been a highlight for you.
I was definitely in my feelings. It's one of the best openings of the Oscars I've ever seen. I mean, I'm biased, I loved Wicked, I mentioned to you before that Wizard of Oz is one of my first that's one of my first experiences with film when I was a kid. It opened my eyes to the magic of film, and they performed somewhere over the rainbow, and it definitely was beautiful. And then they performed the theme song from Wicked, which I loved as well. Like it blew everyone out of the water in the theater, and I know Michelle Yeoh, she had tears in her eyes as well, and it was just a great moment. Yeah. It was a great way to start off the Oscars.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. And I really loved watching what was so clearly like a true sisterhood between them. Like they're both two powerhouse singers, but like they've had this sort of kinship that I
Hmm.
don't I don't think that can be fake. Like they really seem to be supportive of each other, and I really think it was a wonderful way to, yeah, just to open the show. I loved it as well.
Yeah, I think it's a such, yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. I think that it's such they have a great relationship. You can tell from their interviews, for Wicked, but also just looking at Ariana Grande, looking at Cynthia during the performance, like she looked emotional too. And this means a lot to both of them. Like I've heard the story about Ariana Grande just kind of manifesting this into happening. And this was like years ago. And Cynthia, it is, a once in a lifetime role as well for her too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I think this is going to be definitely a highlight for a lot of people. And so coming off of that amazing opening number.
It did go into a bit of a weird turn from there. I mean, it did get a
Okay.
I'm talking about the weird turn. Conan O'Brien doing the bit, like he was in this from The Substance, coming out of Demi Moore's body. I thought that, I thought that was a little, took a weird turn there, but but it was funny. I guess it was funny. Yeah.
You know what? I will say this because I loved The Substance. It was
Yeah.
actually a movie that one of my favorites, I think, of last year. It was a hard turn for
Yeah.
sure.
Bit of a weird
Coming out of
turn
that,
there. Yeah. Yeah.
it was a hard turn. But you know what? Conan's a weird guy,
Yeah.
and
He's
I,
zany.
yeah, like I really appreciate that he brought out his weird for the ceremony and just kind of had that balance all night. But
And
yeah,
I'm
I
glad
did
he
hear
found
some
his
people talk
shoe.
about.
I'm glad he found his shoe in Demi Moore's body.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm definitely glad.
that's right. That's right. That's right. And I mean, obviously, for people that hadn't seen The Substance, that definitely would have been what the moment. But yeah, I did enjoy it, and I also think that it was really great that he brought his friends out, to kind of support him as well too. Like I liked a couple of, as I said, like a couple of his bits. I really liked the Lithgow piece, and I really
Mhm.
also liked that he brought in Adam Sandler as well and milked the Chalamet moment from an earlier award show. That was really great too. That was really, really great.
Yeah, I like that, and I also liked that Nick Offerman was the voice of the Oscars too. I definitely appreciated that.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, yes. Like let's bring Nick Offerman back for everything. Let's have
yeah,
him announce everything.
I
He's
agree. I
just, yeah,
agree.
chef's kiss on that one too, for sure. Okay, so I know we're gonna have a lot of other moments that we want to highlight, highs and lows. Um, we talked about the opening, but maybe let's talk about, before we get into the nitty gritty of like some of the categories itself. Was there a moment that stood out for you amongst all of the hardware that was given out last night?
That's a great question. I would say I mean, other than like the Wicked performance, that was one of the highs for sure. Um, I would say the James Bond tribute was a highlight for me. I'm a big James Bond fan. Um, yeah, I mean, especially Ray performing Skyfall. That I love that. I love that part of the show, and also the in memoriam as tribute to all the people that we lost in the industry last year. That especially Gene Hackman. That was I think that was done really well, also. So those are some of the great moments of the Oscars for me. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. I mean, we lost a lot of heavyweights
Hmm.
last year and last few weeks even, right? So that in memoriam really hit.
James Earl
Um,
Jones,
yeah,
Gene Hackman,
yeah.
Quincy Jones. That was good too, as well as and am I
David
missing?
Lynch.
Yeah, David Lynch too. Yeah.
Big one. And actually, one thing that I did hear, word on the street, because of course everybody has to have an opinion on what happened. And of course, there's always going to be someone that they miss ultimately every
Hmm.
year. Um, Michelle Trachtenberg, who
Oh
recently
yeah.
died, they forgot her. So I think, like, X lit up last night
I can't
because with
believe
Millennial
that.
Rage,
Yeah.
yeah, they totally missed her, and it was just a complete oversight.
Yeah.
So that's maybe one little blemish there. And I think every year too, there's always a conversation around what's the right amount of in memoriam. Like you want to respect the artist that we lost, but also you want to keep the show moving.
Yeah.
So it's always, yeah, an interesting mix and balance. I think they did a good job, like you said, of yeah, keeping it respectful and classy and honoring the people that were so hugely involved in the artistic community, but
Mhm.
also not belaboring it. I kind of, yeah, I kind of feel like it's a hard one to do to get it exactly right. But yeah, Michelle Trachtenberg, the Buffy fans, Gossip Girl fans were livid after her omission.
Mhm.
And I have to admit, I actually didn't notice it. I heard about it and I thought, oh, that's right. So That's one thing I would say. But I totally agree with you. Switching gears here a little
Yeah.
bit, I want to go to the Bond performance, the medley, because
Yes.
I love the opening. Right, we got Margaret Qualley comes out, does her sexy Bond girl thing, which was amazing,
Yeah.
and then yeah, Doja Cat and Lisa and Ray. Now, here's the thing. Okay, here's the thing. Now, I enjoyed it. I know Ray's your girl. Okay, so
Yeah,
I'm not going to say
Ray,
anything
be
bad about
careful.
that
Be careful what
performance.
you say about Ray. All right.
I am. I'm actually, for those who are listening right now, we're not using video right now, but I am holding on to this the sides of my desk as we're recording this, as I'm about to say this, because
I also
I
think
can
Ray was one
feel
of the
the
best
energy when we're
dressed
going
of
to
the
run.
night too. Yep. This
She
is
looked great.
yeah.
She looked great. The girl looked great. Um, Skyfall, like Adele
Those are big shoes to
sang
fill.
the heck out of that. Yeah, Adele sang the heck out of that. So some people may have been thinking, what were they thinking to not get Adele to sing it? And maybe Adele was, busy with other things. Maybe they wanted to highlight some new talent, some
Mhm.
newish talent, I guess. And then there's still some other people that I've heard also rumors that Ray may be on the next Bond soundtrack. She might be heavily involved,
I think
right?
after this performance, she has to be. There's no other choice for her for the next theme of the next James Bond that Amazon now owns, right? So
That's right.
that's an
That's
interesting
right.
development.
And speaking of, yeah, okay. So last night, I know we were texting about this. I want to follow up on this question that I asked you. So Bond, okay, who, in your opinion, is your favorite Bond? Not even the best Bond, but who is the Bond that, for you, when you think of James Bond, is coming to your mind? Like, who do you think is your James Bond? Not the best Bond necessarily, but your James Bond.
Yeah, I'm glad you separated the two because typically I think a lot of people say that Sean Connery is the best Bond of all time. Um, I don't think. I mean, he's definitely yeah, he's definitely a lot of people's top choices. But I feel like depending on the era you grew up in, you're gonna say a different Bond. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I would say
Mm-hmm.
for that answer, my answer is Pierce Bronson. That's my Bond. With
Mm-hmm.
GoldenEye, I love the video game too, and Halle Berry is one of the best Bond girls as well, and she looked great last
No
night
doubt.
too. Um, but I would say Pierce Bronson. What about you?
Okay. Yeah, that's a great take. And I deliberately did say not the best, right? Because I knew that would be maybe a different answer,
I
or it
really
could
like
be,
Timothy Dalton too. Also, a lot of
yeah,
people
that's
forget like sleep on Timothy Dalton. I think he. I mean, he wasn't in. I'm not sure how many movies he had, but they weren't one of the best James Bond movies for
mm,
sure in the series. But I thought he was a great James Bond too.
mm,
But I would have to say Pierce Bronson is my James Bond. Yeah.
okay. So I'm actually going to agree with you. But I'm also going to slide in Daniel Craig. I know that he's the last one.
Yeah.
I love Daniel Craig. I definitely find him to be the right mix of like cool and
Yeah.
like just yeah, he's just it for me. I love him in that role, but I also
Okay.
think Pierce Brosnan would have been my second as well. So I completely agree. I think it might be exactly what you said about maybe the era where you grew up, or if there's a certain memory around a certain Bond film that you have,
Yeah.
like your introduction to Bond. Because obviously, yeah, much respect to the earlier Bonds, and obviously we got to like, tip our martini to Sean Connery. Like that's kind of a necessary, but almost um, obligatory, like a mandatory sort of thing. But I
Yeah.
personally, yeah, I really like where Daniel Craig took it. To be honest, that's kind of for me, yeah, my Bond. But
And
I will
for that
say,
reason, I
when
didn't
you bring up,
like. I for that reason, I thought I didn't like Daniel Craig at first. because I was used to the Bonds, like Pierce Brosnan's Bond is more of like, he's a womanizer. He likes, he's saying all the lines, and it doesn't. Those movies tend to not take themselves so seriously. But like the new James Bond with Daniel Craig, it's a very like it's more dark. It's more gritty and real. And they grew on me for sure. And I think one of my favorite Bond movies, if not my favorite Bond movie, is Casino Royale with Daniel Craig. That movie is probably, yeah, the top. That's top notch, James Bond.
That's my favorite one. Yeah, that's my favorite one. And that's when it kind of clicked for me. Like I totally agree with you. And yeah, like it's a more brooding kind of bond, a more brooding kind of bond. And I dug it.
Yeah,
But you know, we can have this
badass.
conversation and there's no right or wrong answer. I'm sure there's people screaming right now at us saying, you fools, it's obviously insert your person here.
Right.
But I did want to touch on that, because like obviously that was a great number last night
It's going to be
for
interesting to
the
see
James
who
Bond.
they
But
pick as the next James Bond. I'm curious about that.
I know, I know, like well, actually, I was going to say, who the hell would want that role? Everybody, except for the fact that nobody would want that role because it's such a hard thing to do for a couple of reasons. One, you do have a huge shoes to fill, and almost certainly people will have an allergic reaction to whoever doesn't fit their image of what they think Bond already is, which we obviously saw with the backlash around like Idris Elba, who was in contention for that role previously. And then the other thing, which I thought about, is if you do this role, I mean, it's a great role to get. However, it will follow you for most of your career, right?
Yeah, I agree. I
So,
mean, well, yeah, it's going to follow you for sure. You're going to be, you're stuck with that role for a long time. But I mean, look at Daniel Craig.
yeah,
He, yeah,
absolutely. I was thinking that last night, actually, when I was watching Mark Hamill present an award. And I don't even remember which award he was giving out, actually. It might have been more one of the technical awards, but
yeah, I think it was.
he came
Yeah.
out to like the Star Wars music. And I just thought to myself, actually, maybe it was just me, but he didn't look super amused. And I think he even made some kind of a joke at the
He made
top
it.
of.
He wanted to come out. He was like, I wish I came out to the theme of Jaws." Like he still can't escape
Right,
Star Wars after all these years, right? He can't escape it. He's
right,
done so many other things since, but
right.
he's just
Totally,
like, yeah, he can't
totally.
escape it. Yeah.
That's just, it's a done deal. It's a wrap. Like that is your music. Everything you do henceforth is going to be at the Star Wars, to the beat of Star Wars. Um, but there could be worse things, right? So, okay, we talked the highlights, or at least the highlights for now, because I'm sure some other things will come up as we get into the categories. Um, do we want to go into like until maybe less of the highlights, the lowlights? Do we want to get into like things maybe we could do without? Does anything come to mind for you?
Well, another one of the highlights for me was the spotlight in LA, the tribute to LA as a city. Uh, La La Land was heavily, in the montages. I love that movie. And, so many other movies, like the city of Los Angeles has been, played a character in that movie. And also the aftermath of the city's devastating wildfires. The tribute to that was great with when they had the firefighters come out. I thought that was a good segment as well. Um, and I was kind of surprised they didn't mention like Michael Mann is one of my favorite directors. He did Heat, he did Collateral, and all his movies, LA is a major focus. I'm surprised they kind of like left Michael Mann out of all the montages as a tribute to LA, which I was very surprised by. So that was kind of like, I don't know what he did to the Academy or why he's kind of being erased or something. I don't know. But I'm just surprised how none of his films were mentioned. I mean, were part of these montages. That was a bit of a low light for me. As far as Yeah, another low light. I mean, another like low point of the Oscars, I would say is that's a good question. What would you say? Was there anything that kind of like was like not yeah weren't a big fan of, or
Yeah, it is a good question. I should probably have an answer for it if I'm going to ask you. But I think for me, maybe things could have been a little tighter.
Mhm.
There were some people that accepted awards that got cut off like 30 seconds into the award. So you just mentioned Michael Mann.
Yeah,
That's an interesting uh, point there. And I thought the same about Denis Villeneuve. I was kind of like, what did he do to the Academy? Like he was
right?
sat way in the back in the nosebleeds of like the like the orchestra. It was weird. It was weird watching his teams, his technical teams, take Oscars for a variety of things. I think sound was one of
Yeah,
them,
yeah.
and I couldn't understand like each one of them that went up thanked Denny, of course, right? And I just felt this is really odd that you would celebrate this movie in this way, Dune 2, but wouldn't nominate Denis. That just seems so weird to me. And he was snubbed multiple times, the first time around as well too. So I kind of feel like maybe he's pissed off somebody in the Academy or like someone with some real juice because it just felt very odd to me. But then moreover, which was also really odd, was that I I actually I have the numbers on this too. Like I was reading about this. One of the teams that went up was cut off. It was like a trio. They cut them off like 50 seconds into the acceptance speech, played them out. And I don't know if you noticed that, but it
No,
was
I
so
didn't.
odd to me and so jarring.
Yeah,
It was so jarring to me because these people were, of course, talking about the movie. There were three of them. They were pretty brief, and they started to mention a little bit about Denny as well too to thank him. And then they hit them with the orchestra. I was like, it's been like not even a minute. There's three of them, which but yet our friend Adrian Brody, he just made a 5.5 minute acceptance speech, waved off the orchestra. And by the way, I love Adrian Brody,
mm,
much respect. He deserved that Oscar. We can get back to that later, and justice for Timothy for those of you who are in that camp. But he deserved that Oscar, and I get that he wanted to make his point known. But I have to say, in light of everything that was going on with Timothy Chalamet and all the heat that he took for his speech when he was talking about the work that went into 5.5 years of that preparation for the Bob Dylan movie, it's odd that people found him to be slightly off or maybe even a little bit like arrogant. And then Adrian Brody went and made a speech where he went way over his time. He waved off the orchestra multiple times.
multiple.
He,
Yeah.
yeah, made a comment, and again, love him, but made a comment about this is not my first rodeo. Obviously, it's his second win. So I just felt like it's interesting because maybe because of the fact that he's older and that he has the tenor that he has, but can you imagine a younger actor doing that? Can you imagine like Timothy Chalamet doing that or like a Mikey Madison doing that? I think we'd be looking at it a little bit differently if it were a different person, right? So I thought that
No,
was
I
kind of
agree.
odd.
Yeah, that was a long speech. Like, I thought it started off really well. I liked how he talked about um, his career did go away after he won his Oscar. Like, he had, I don't know what happened, but he was in some movies which weren't received well. I think one of them was The Jacket, and some other ones. But he just kind he went away for a while, and now this is his big comeback, and you know, he definitely. I wanted Timothy to win. I think Timothy deserved it more. I think, he is still young for sure, but I don't know. He dedicated 5 years of his life to that, and I just thought that was an amazing performance, like one of the best performances I've seen all year. And but Adrian Brody is a great actor too, and so I just thought, yeah, that speech did go on. He waved off the orchestra multiple times, and I was like, okay, wrap it up. He also had, I don't know if anyone ever saw, like, if any of you ever saw. There's a weird clip afterwards, between him and Halle Berry and his wife. So they reenact the kiss, the famous kiss when Adrian Brody won at the Oscars and you know, kissed Hallie, and she kind of paid him back after. And there's a clip that's going viral, but like she kisses him like full on the lips in front of his wife, and I was just like, that's interesting. I guess it was just payback, but that's another thing too. When that famous kiss happened at the Oscars, where Adrian Brody just grabbed Hallie and and made out with her, like I thought that was a bit. I don't know if that would be cool now, these days. I don't think that would go, I don't think that would fly these days,
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
No, no, does not age well.
It does not age
I
well,
saw that
exactly.
clip.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that moment. That's a great pull there, Drew, because I actually am sure double standard. I loved it. I love
Okay.
that she went in for that kiss. And I love that she did that. I'm crazy about
Okay.
it.
You loved it. Okay.
And
That's your hot take.
I loved it. I loved it. But I understand what you're saying. Like,
I was
and I
like,
think
isn't that a bit
his
awkward?
with Georgina Chapman there, his
Yeah.
partner. Yeah, a little awkward, but she apologized beforehand, and I think she knew that it was going to be an iconic moment. And to
Yeah.
your point, I think she had that. It was like a kiss 22 years in the making.
Yeah.
She saw the moment, she went for it, and I saw her apologize before doing it and after doing it to Georgina. So I think
That's fair.
I
Yeah.
loved it. I thought it was a great moment. And if I were
Yeah.
a reporter on that red carpet and I got that on tape, I'd be like, okay, that's a wrap. We don't have to do any more interviews. That's it. That's the money right there. Great moment. So I loved that moment as well too. And I totally agree because going back to see Adrian Brody do his thing when he won and plant a kiss on Hallie, it doesn't
Yeah.
age well for some reason. It feels very Me Too-y. It's very like it's
Yeah.
it's something about it seemed a little off. So it's funny. I am saying that I don't mind that she did it, but I mean, I think because he drew first blood, I'm kind of like okay with
It's
what
payback.
she
Yeah.
did, and it was tongue in cheek, no pun intended. So yeah, I love that. I thought that was a great moment as well, and yeah, I guess you asked about low moments, high moments. We're talking about that. There's so many great moments throughout the night. I don't really have a low moment, although I do have a moment that, upon hindsight, I kind of thought about it, and it's a curious moment for me. I'm okay, so we talked about like, the timing of things and how for myself anyway, some of the um award recipients didn't really have a chance to actually give a full speech. They were kind of cut off prematurely. So I think there were a lot of areas where they could have maybe tightened up the show, where
Mhm.
maybe I didn't really need so much of that, so that they could have given more time to them. But one thing I have heard, some chatter that I've heard since watching the show, is around, and wait for me to land the plane first before you say anything. Okay. So the Quincy Jones tribute, the Quincy
Yes.
Jones tribute. So that was interesting. I know we love the Wiz. We all love the Wiz. That was great, but I have heard some people talk about why. Like, why was this person given more of a tribute than, say, like David Lynch? Like, we barely saw anything. Why would he be given that kind of a tribute? I don't really have an answer to that question that I'm tossing out there for our listeners to consider. But I, yeah, I'm maybe kind of curious about some of the choices that were made. I enjoyed it. But if it hadn't been there, let me flip the question this way. If it hadn't been there, I wouldn't have cared.
Hmm.
So I think it would have been fine without it. But it was interesting that he got that tribute because he also got the tribute at another award show. I think at the Grammys they did a huge thing for him as well too.
Okay. Yeah.
So that was interesting. That was an interesting choice, I thought. Yeah.
No, that was interesting. Yeah, I wasn't expecting it. It did kind of make sense, with the Wizard of Oz and obviously Wicked
Yeah.
and the Wiz. So yeah, I need to go back and rewatch the Wiz too. I don't remember a lot of that movie, but and Michael Jackson was in it too. And yeah, I thought that I mean Quincy Jones, obviously you have to do a tribute, but yeah, David Lynch didn't get much of a mention at
Yeah.
all. I thought that was a bit I was very
Yeah.
surprised by that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess at the end of the day, like, can never be a perfect show. But yeah, I think, we're nitpicking here. And I think at this point,
Yeah,
people are kind of nitpicking because, leading into the whole awards, it was sort of a like unknown as to what was going to happen. There was a lot of controversy, obviously this year, and there were also a lot of categories that seemed like they were up in the air. But then the night of, it kind of played out to be the Honora show. It was really about Honora and Sean Baker. Like they were dominant last night, so
let
it was
Sean Baker
quite
cook.
interesting.
Yeah, it was almost like a Nora took over last night.
Yeah. Yeah. They went on absolute tear. Absolutely. So definitely Honora was the top winner of the night. They earned 5 total awards. And Mikey Madison for Best Actress um, was, I mean, for me, I'm so happy for her. I think she gave yeah, a pretty groundbreaking performance, if I'm just being totally honest, in Honora. But my heart just really wept for Demi Moore.
I was shocked.
And I do
Yeah,
want,
Demi Moore, she must be. I mean, yeah, uh, I was very surprised by that. Yeah, Demi Moore, like, yeah, is she ever gonna get another? I don't think so. I think that was her, this was her year. But so I was very surprised by that. Would have lost the bet for sure. And but yeah, they decided to go with Mikey Madison and kind of like the sweep of the whole movie. Yeah. Sean
yeah,
Baker,
yeah.
he got so many, they really crushed it last night.
It was wild. It was wild. And the gravity of that win really hit me when I heard this kind of staggering fact that like he just tied the record for the most Oscars won in one night by a single person. He's tied the record with Walt Disney. So put it in perspective here. He won more
Oh,
Oscars in one night than Steven Spielberg has won his entire career,
wow, that is wild. I mean, it
right?
is deserved for sure. He definitely deserved it. It's a great film for independent movies as well too. And I liked his speech when he mentioned, we gotta go back to the movie theaters. We gotta support independent film. Like that's a real independent movie. It wasn't. Yeah, it's just and I'm glad it did sweep the Oscars.
Yeah, definitely. Legit. I can't say anything bad about that. Each time he came up and accepted an award, his speeches got better and better and better. And yeah, he made a great point. You're right about the power and the importance of independent film. And definitely Honora was, the little engine that could. It was
Mhm.
an independent produced film. And so that's incredible. But then also technically, as I sat there, I was like, wait a minute. He wrote, directed, and he edited this film. That's madness. Like that is really yeah, much respect there too. That was really well deserved for on all fronts, really. And now again, we're jumping all over the place here, but maybe we can go back into the nominees and let's look at, okay, you can take the wheel here for a second. Let's go into the nominees and what do you want to talk about first? We're going down the line here. We're not going to necessarily talk about all of them, maybe an exhaustive list, but we'll hit the main categories because obviously I'm leaving some space for you to process the Timothy Chalamet of it all. I just want to give you some time to really take some deep breaths and just yeah, just process what happened there because I'm sure you're feeling all kinds of feelings there. So if you want to dive right into that pool of trauma, we can get into it right now. But if you want to wait and collect yourself, we can. Because earlier you did mention that you felt your boy was robbed there, and I would love to hear your thoughts on that, or maybe that's all that needs to be said.
I mean, it is too soon, but we can start there. I'm still, I'm still hurt about it. I'm in my feelings. It's gonna take some time. It was a bit of a deep cut. Um, um, I I'm just blown away by Timothy Chalamet. Like when you look at like he was preparing for this role, like he said, for 5 years. He was also filming Dune at the time, Dune 1 and 2. Like, this guy. is amazing. He's the future. I feel like give him all the Oscars. Okay, give him give him give him all the Oscars. I mean, he has definitely time, and I'm sure he will get his Oscar, or he could be like a Leo, gets his Oscar later in the game. Um, but I was just the way he inhabited Bob Dylan in that film, and he owned the movie. Like it's all him. Every scene is him. I just think he deserved to win. Maybe his age did kind of hurt him when it comes to the why he didn't win. But don't get me wrong, Adrian Brody did an amazing performance, but I just thought Timothy should have won. Yeah, and I was looking forward to that acceptance speech too. That would have been a fire acceptance speech as well. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, that would have been interesting to see what he would have said had he gotten the mic. And he certainly was ready to shine, man, in that bright yellow fit. Like
yeah, that
he
that
was
suit. I mean, um, keeps him safe while he's jogging at night as well.
for sure,
Definitely.
for sure. For sure. I'm a big fan of it. I know um, that outfit had some people divided, but like if there's anybody that can pull that off, it's him. He can pull that off. I think
He
it would
pulled
have
it
been
off.
a
I
hard
would,
look on
yeah, that
the
wouldn't be my first choice for a suit. It was like a yellow lime green type of suit. I was,
kind of
it was,
Curious George vibe. Yeah.
yeah, you had to wear sunglasses if you looked directly at it, I feel like. It was very bright.
It was. And so I feel like that's the suit of a man who feels like either he's gonna win or maybe knows he might not win, but he's gonna be sat front row with
Mm.
Hollywood legends and royalty. That tells me that to your point, I think he's got time. He's gonna get the Oscar. And they sat him right up there with Kylie Jenner. Smart move on the producer's part. He knew he was gonna be up there. And so why not? Why not wear something that's gonna help you stand out? Like
Rocking
it
the
was a great
mustache too.
choice.
Big fan of the mustache.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. Committing to that, you know. But yeah, okay. So we did to talk about, of course, the best actor going to Adrian Brody, and and we talked about best actress. We did do that. So Mikey got her due. Demi, I don't know, to just wrap up the question you asked earlier about whether or not this is it. I don't know. Maybe she will get another opportunity now because people have seen her in
Yeah.
this new light because of the substance. She may get some interesting roles coming up in her, I want to say golden years, but I mean she looks as great as she ever did. And
She
so I
looks
think that
great.
hopefully it'll entice people to, yeah, just to give her some more opportunities at it.
Yeah,
You
this
never
is the
know,
role where
but
the
I guess if
Academy
you,
finally took her seriously, right? I don't think she's been
for
nominated
sure.
for anything else, but when you look at her roles, like Ghost is one of my favorite of her roles. A
Mm,
Few Good Men, she was amazing into. So many other
yeah,
roles. Yeah, this is the first time she's been taken
yeah,
seriously, and I'm glad she has finally been taken seriously. Surprised she didn't win, but yeah, maybe there's another role where she finally gets it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. There's still time. I think she's in a second act, so to speak. And I think also too, when I reflect on both her performance and Mikey Madison's, um, there's a part of me that does think I probably bought into the whole narrative around the comeback story. I love a comeback story. So I
Mm,
think probably a lot of us drank that Kool-Aid, and it would have been nice to see her win because that would have been the way that like the story should end, is that she gets the Oscar, this is this major comeback. Um, but Mikey also did a great job. So maybe it's exactly as it should be. And so let's see what happens with Demi Moore next, because now, as you said, she'll probably have her choice of a few roles, which is great. We love to see it, right? For older actresses as well too, which is wild to say, but yeah, we all know that can be an issue. And I really think now we should dip into some of the other categories,
mhm.
and maybe which one do you want to look at next?
Actress in a supporting role. Let's look at that.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. So what do you want to say about that?
I am so glad Zoe Saldana won. I think a lot of people. I don't think it was a big surprise. I think she was the front runner this whole time. Um, it was a good. Yeah, I mean, Ariana Grande was great in Wicked. Felicity Jones in The Brutalist. Isabella Rossellini, I thought maybe could be the dark horse of the race for Conclave.
Mm.
But I'm glad Zoe Saldana won, and it was an amazing moment. One of my favorite moments at the Oscars. You know, she was very emotional, obviously. You know, yeah, shouting out to her mom, her partner, and just all the strong women in her life and who helped her get to this point. I thought it was a great acceptance speech and just a great moment at the Oscars. And she's such an amazing actor, especially in Amelia Perez. Yeah.
Yeah, she's definitely the shining light in Amelia Perez, if there's anything that can be said there. And I totally agree. I think, yeah, she was due. We knew that
Yeah.
that was going to happen. She's been dominating every award show, and I think I'm glad that she did get her due for what I think is an award that was given for the body of her work as well. That
Yes.
she was due, and and I'm happy for her. I will say, um, for that category, yeah, I kind of felt like it was going to go her way, but you know what? We talked earlier about who we might see as like the dark horse of that category. And I know that you pointed to Isabella Rossellini, and that would have been maybe like again that whole legacy kind
Hmm.
of vote. She's sweet with the Academy. I could have seen that maybe if it weren't for Zoe's utter dominance throughout the award season, but I would have also I say this, and I think I've been I think very fair to Wicked, but I'm not like bowing at the altar, maybe the way that that you are. But Ariana was great. I really think she gave a great performance, and I really enjoyed her in that. And I'm glad that she
Me
was
too.
nominated because I think it's yeah, it speaks very highly to her comedic chops as well too. Like I LOL'd in the theater when I was watching her and she was like delightful in it. So I'm happy
She's
for
so
her that,
funny.
her first showing.
Her timing, her comedic timing, and comedy is one of those. Comedy performances are not acknowledged as well as they should be. Comedy's hard. It's not easy. And her timing is amazing in Wicked. She also, I don't know if you ever watched SNL when she was the host. She does
Yeah,
amazing impressions too.
yeah,
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 she does. Her impressions
absolutely.
are so good. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, she definitely has skills. Like I think that's great they nominated her. And likewise, I know you're a big fan of A Complete Unknown. I think Monica Barbaro was also a great addition to that. And I personally have a soft spot for Felicity Jones, having seen and sat through The Brutalist. I think it was yeah, it was a very good performance. I just think it was Zoe's year. So I guess not too much to say on that category because I think we all knew which way the wind was blowing. But why don't we look at actor in a supporting role? So we, again, kind of knew, I think, what was going to happen here. No surprises here, right?
Yeah, no surprises. Kieran Culkin wins for Real Pain, directed and written by Jesse Eisenberg. Um, yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm not surprised he won. Um, you're you're Borisov for Honora. I thought I'm kind of surprised on looking back the way the night went. Um, how he maybe he should have won maybe.
Oh, I think he gave an amazing performance, and I would have liked him to win. In an
Yeah,
ideal world, if the freight train that was Kieran Culkin was not on its way to Egotville, he
yeah.
probably would have won. I love Kieran Culkin. I've loved him ever since.
Oh,
Well,
he's
I
great.
mean, I've loved him ever
Yeah,
since he was a kid, but his real for me moment has been everything he's done in the body of work that is Succession. He was incredible. For me, it felt like he was playing almost the same character that he played in The Real Pain. So I think this was a very strong crop of like actors in this category. Jeremy
yeah.
Strong was next level. Guy Pearce was frightening. Ed Norton was great too. And yeah, Yura for me, like out the gate, not really having seen him obviously anything else. I just
No,
thought,
this is his
wow,
coming
what
out
a power.
party. Yeah.
Definitely, definitely. All these guys, I can't wait to see what they get into next. And certainly, yeah, Yura will be interesting to watch to see what he gets offered and what he takes next, because that could have been the sweep for Honora. But yeah, Kieran Culkin deserved. And yeah, he's going to be on Broadway, I think, next doing Glengarry Glen Ross. So if he, assuming he's amazing in that as well
Yeah.
too, he may actually EGOT in a short period of time. So that's going to be interesting to watch
And
too.
he's also going to be making some babies, apparently too, according to
Yeah,
his speech.
that's right.
So
That's right.
the
That's
more
right.
awards he wins, the more babies that are going to be made. So um,
That is right. Yeah, that was a great moment too. That was a
yeah.
great moment. Absolutely. I'm sure his wife will be careful now. That's what she says at the after party. Yeah, okay. So we've hit a few categories here. We did the actor and a leading, actress and a leading. We've talked about the actor and the actress and supporting. Okay, where are we going to go now? What do we want to talk about?
Directing. How about best director?
Yeah, let's go there. So obviously we know the outcome now is Sean Baker for Honora. What did you think when you saw this category initially? Were you thinking it was going to go that way?
Um, no, I did not. I didn't. Well, I didn't. I didn't think Honora would sweep the Oscars like it did. I thought it was going to go to the Brutalist. So Brady Corbett for the Brutalist. I thought that was my front runner for me. Um, yeah, I was surprised. I was surprised that Sean Baker won, but it does make sense now that the way they
Mhm.
went with for the night. Yeah, it definitely is an amazing film, and Sean Baker deserves it, and it's a great win for independent film. But like I was saying, but I thought the Brutalist was going to take it originally. How about you?
Yeah, on this one, direction, I did think it might go his way. I did think it might go his way only because, and again, strong category. I totally hear you on Brady Corbet because I feel like he was sort of I mean, he might have been considered a front runner there, but I kind of saw it might go to Sean Baker only because it seemed like he was doing really well in some of the other award shows that were given out by guilds, like the Writers Guild, the Producers Guild, Directors Guild. Um, they seem to really be heavy on Honora. But I also, sat there thinking if it goes to Brady, I wouldn't be surprised. There was a small part of me for just like a moment that even felt, even just based on the applause alone, that like maybe Coralie Farge might upset the whole lot. A
Oh
small part of me,
wow!
even though I knew very unlikely for the Academy to honor a horror film, it's very unlikely. There was a small part of me, and I think she got it. I mean, a pretty thunderous applause when her name was called. So I think this was Sean's to lose. But yeah, I was sort of thinking this one, if it's not Brady Corbet, like maybe they might go another way. They might do something there. But yeah, good on Sean. I think that um, yeah, that kind of went the way it perhaps should go. And I think there are a couple other things I do want to say because in our pre-Oscar chat, okay, I rode pretty heavy for Conclave,
You
and
did. I'm
with the
surprised you
exception,
didn't. I'm surprised. Yeah.
yeah, with the exception of screenplay for Peter Strahm, which was totally deserved. Yeah, adapted screenplay, I should say. It yeah, it was a pretty quiet night for them. Like yeah, they didn't really make that much of a dent. But I had picked it as actually my favorite going into this for Best Picture. I thought that it seemed to have a little bit of heat coming
Wow.
off of the BAFTAs and people, sorry, on the SAG Awards as well. So I kind of thought it might go that way. But again, just goes to show like the difference in different voting, and also the preferential voting system this year for the Oscars. So first, second, and third ballots were chosen. So if people weren't in agreement on the first, then the second, which could have been like, who knows, could have been everyone chose Nora as their second choice, could have bumped it up, right? So this was a very interesting night, but I think still they're all winners. And just having had more people just flock to this movie because of the Oscars, I think this is why we have these award shows as well, because it does bring attention to, like Sean Baker was saying earlier, independent film, and to films like Conclave that may otherwise kind of fall into the cracks as well too.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, yeah, Conclave. I'm surprised it didn't get more awards throughout the night, but that was your pick for Best Picture. So,
I actually did. I did pick it, and I think it was because I was feeling very optimistic after the SAG Awards and when they won Best Ensemble, and it got a lot of love at the BAFTAs, obviously. So I did think maybe they won't go for the Hooker movie, and they'll go for the movie
mhm,
that is about something that is very topical. And I will say that Honora, I don't want to disrespect it because it was a great movie, and the more and more I sit with it and think about it, um, it really was something very different and very groundbreaking. And I think, Sean Baker does do something really special with um, characters and people, I think, that kind of fall through the cracks in society.
mm,
And I think obviously being an independent film too, that was something that I thought it could go either way. It could help or hinder it. It could endear people to it. But now that obviously we know the results, a lot of people have spoken about how Honora has been a favorite for so many actors in Hollywood since its release. It also won the Palme d'Or at Cannes. So I think it wasn't like a complete surprise that it won. It was obviously well received. And like I said, I really enjoyed it too. It was a movie where, and for those who are listening who haven't seen it, hopefully now with its win, people will go out and find it, or it might get a wider release. But it
mhm,
was kind of like a movie where the protagonist doesn't know what kind of movie they're in. And so you're watching it thinking that you're watching a drama, and then kind of turns into a fairy tale, or at least character thinks they're in a fairy tale, and then you realize she's in a thriller. So it's the way it's paced, the way it
mhm,
kind of moves is just so riveting. And now sitting with it, I'm going, yeah, it's probably a really compelling case for Best Picture, just because it is so well shot, it is so funny, and also
mhm.
so devastating, so tragic, and
Yeah.
it's really an interesting storyline as well too. And like I said, for people who are into direction, I think they probably respect Sean Baker as well, the writing as well. Um, it's just a movie that has a lot of heart, and it's very memorable. It's very memorable. So either you're going to love this movie or not, but it's not going to be a meh movie. You're going to remember it either way. And I want to touch on something too, because something that Sean Baker said yesterday, and I know you mentioned this when we were chatting about this during the show, that Mikey Madison was basically cast for this movie because of Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah,
Do you remember that?
Once upon a time in Hollywood. I'm glad Sean Baker mentioned that in his speech. That she was discovered from Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, that which was a fire cast, including also um, Austin Butler. He was pretty much discovered in that film. Also um, from The Substance, Margaret Qualley.
Oh, Margaret Qualley.
Yeah, she's from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Um, I think Ella Fanning is in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood too. Like just that whole group
That's right.
is just that's great casting, and she was discovered from that movie. Which yeah, I'm super excited. She's the next breakout star of the year for sure.
Yep, absolutely. And I bring it up because, it's it's kind of interesting that next year, for the first time, they're going to have a category for best casting. So,
Oh wow, I didn't
yeah,
know about that.
yes, yes, I just recently heard that. So, in theory, had they had that category this year, Baker would have probably swept. I mean, can we just say it? He would have won that one as well too, because the casting on this was a big part of why it was so well received. So that's
I would
yeah,
say, yeah, if they had this, that's a great question. If they had that category this year, Honora probably would have won. I mean, it was great casting for sure, but I think Wicked also would have been a great, you know, winner in that category as well. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You got to have Wicked in that category.
Yeah.
If you're putting together a list of nominees, Wicked's got to be in the mix. Honora's got to be in the mix.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, Conclave, I think there also would have been in the mix.
Best casting, okay.
Um, it's stacked cast. And I mean, all of them probably. But yeah, that would have been an interesting category. So next year, it'll be interesting to see what happens. And with, an eye on that category for the first time, that'll be a really interesting one to watch.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, there's a whole bunch of other categories as well that we can get into. I mean, obviously, makeup and hairstyling went to substance. I don't think too many people were surprised about that. Um, there's one category before we get into anything else as we start to wind down here that I really want to get into because you asked earlier about low point, and I
Okay.
have to say, okay, for music, original score. Okay, as a reminder, The Brutalist was nominated, Conclave, Emilia Perez, Wicked, and The Wild Robot. Now the winner was Danielle Bloomberg for The Brutalist, which was a wonderful score. Wonderful score.
Wow.
I do have a question mark here, though, around this one. And again, I don't understand if the Academy didn't see challengers, if they just are not a fan of, the director, Nico Guadagnino, or what happened there. But to not even nominate it, to me, was one of those upsets that I saw early on when I saw the list of nominees. I was floored by that. Happy that The Brutalist won because it was a great score. Um, but I was confused by not seeing Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross there. I was super confused by that.
That's a robbery for sure. As far as music, original score, and music, original song, I thought that was a low point too for both of them because the Challengers wasn't nominated for original score, which is, um, yeah, that's criminal to be honest. Like they should be arrested for doing that. But I thought that both categories this year, a lot of there wasn't a really memorable, the winner isn't memorable. I feel like it just wasn't a memorable score or song. It's not like something we're gonna,
Mm,
like a year from now, I don't think we'll even remember this who won for best original score and what was the best original song at this Oscars. It wasn't memorable either. The winner was from Emilia Perez, which was it's definitely a good pop song for sure, but I just thought that it wasn't very memorable. Yeah, for me. Yeah,
Almal for Amelia
yeah.
Perez. Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. I mean, will we remember these? I'm not sure. It was an interesting year, and I think, yeah, there's a lot of. I'm just looking at the list of nominees, excuse me, for original song again. Yeah, it seemed like Almal was kind of on a run at the other award shows as well, but yeah, that's maybe a good point. I don't know if I'll remember that song in a year's time. We'll see what happens next year because next year we could see Wicked run the table on that one. Who knows, right? I don't know. Like it's going to be an interesting
I
year to
thought the
follow up
Wicked
on
was
this
gonna
year with
be
all.
Defying Gravity. I thought like where was that? Like I was so confused. Was it
Yeah, and I guess okay. So
was it disqualified
like
for some reason? Like Defying Gravity is the song of the year.
yeah, and I with Wicked, I guess, and this might be something our listeners are going to chime in on after the show, but because it's a movie based on a musical based on a movie. Like I think from the musical, I don't know if it would have qualified for that.
Okay.
Like I don't know as an original song if it would have. And to that point, there was another category that it was part of that I was like, not sure that it should be there because it's not really original in my mind. It's derivative of a
Yeah.
thing that's derivative of something else. I'm like, I'm not sure. I do think though, and I was happy to see that uh, Wicked won for costume design, and so that made sense. That made sense, and I think that that was one of the things that clearly it should, right? And for you know production, clearly it kind of should.
Yeah, the set designs in Wicked were amazing. Like they built real sets for that film, and something like 9 million flowers they planted or something too, like something like crazy number
Um,
like that too for the film. Yeah,
Wow, that is wild. And yeah, it definitely goes to show like the difference between the $6 million Anora budget and what they were able
right.
to do versus the insane budget that Wicked had. It's been a really interesting year, I gotta say. Like, if you're a fan of movies, there was something in every single genre for you, whether it's horror or it's musicals, plural. I guess biopics. Like it was a wild year. I really enjoyed the lead in to this Oscar ceremony and all the conversation around it as well.
I agree. I agree. The films were very, there wasn't a stand. There wasn't like a focus for there wasn't like a Titanic this year, that would sweep the Oscars. It was kind of like you didn't know who was really gonna take most of the Oscars. It was kind of a long shot, some of them. So, but I'm glad Anora did sweep it, and for the most part. But there was a lot of interesting choices for sure.
Absolutely. And just as we're about to wrap up here, I wanted to ask you, are there any movies that are now on your radar that you hadn't seen that you would now like to see as a result of last night's show?
That is a great question. Yes, there definitely is. Um, So the film that won the best animation, it was called, it looks amazing. And forget which country it's from. Oh, it's called Flow, isn't it?
Yeah, it's from Latvia, the
It's from
first Oscar
Latvia,
for
yeah.
Latvia.
Yeah, the first Oscar from Latvia. So that film looks amazing. And it won Best Animated Film. So that's on my radar. Also, the No Other Land documentary. They're
Hmm.
It's a documentary about a collective of Palestinian villages in the West Bank that were ordered for eviction so that Israel could build a training base. And those directors that won for best documentary last night, their speech was one of the highs of the night for me. Very, brave talking, talking about, they didn't even have American distribution for this film. They dedicated their
Hmm.
speech to the conflict in Gaza and to the disenfranchisement of Palestinians under the martial law. It was just a great speech, and
Hmm.
people are going to talk about politics at the Oscars. I feel like this was a rare case of winners really taking the moment to be clear and specific, and talking about their experience, and the injustices going on, you know, in their home country. I thought it was very powerful. Yeah. So I did.
I totally
That's on
agree.
my list too. The No Other Land director film for that documentary. Yeah.
No, totally agree. I didn't get to see Flow. I definitely will make a point to try and see that one.
Mhm.
And also, I'm still here from Brazil. I have to see that
Oh,
one.
that's on my list too. Good point. Yeah.
Yeah, which did win for international feature film last night, and many people thought that Amanda Torres gave the best performance of the year. I've heard many people say that
Okay.
her performance, they were shooketh by it. So I
Yeah.
have to see that. And I think, uh, yeah, there's quite a few films that, I haven't seen that I'd like to see now that are on my radar. So good call as well on, some of the documentaries. I'd like to get around to see some of those as well, because I think this
Yeah.
year people had a lot to say and important ones out there, like you
Hmm.
said, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, how are we feeling? Do we feel? I mean, we can go on and on and on. I'm sure there's lots of things that we missed that maybe others want to talk about, and like
Yeah.
we happy to carry on the conversation as well after we wrap here, so people can let us know their thoughts on the highs, the lows, anything that was shocking to them. What did they love? What did they hate? And also, yeah, like, are there any pictures that you want to see now as a result of the Oscars ceremony last night? Um, but I guess let's bring this thing home. I wanted to say that, yeah, it's uh, been a great year for movies, and like you said earlier, independent film, so important. So I'm really happy that Honora basically um, might entice people to go back to the theaters and support indie film. This is like a win for Hollywood too,
I
right? So
agree. I
for all of
agree.
us, I think.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Well then, I think we'll call it a wrap over there. So I just want to thank everyone for joining us. We hope you enjoyed our Oscar roundup. And yeah, we'll look forward to seeing you with our next episode.
And before you go, don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review, and follow us on our socials. We want to keep the conversation going.
That's right. We absolutely do. Let us know what you thought. Again, what your favorites were, highs, lows, who slayed on the red carpet, because we didn't even get into that. But we'd love to hear. We'd love to hear that if that's also in you as well. And okay, until next time, alchemists.
Stay
Stay curious.
curious.